We're on 19b, Testament base. I'm a Shmuel. Yeah, I don't know how to find that in the, let's see, it's about 20 lines up from the bottom. I'm a Shmuel. The line starts in the traditional Gemara. The line starts with the word like. Goes like this. Okay, we thank Hashem. We're able to learn every day in this course of learning Hashem to be some English. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Nasan la niyar chalak. V'amar la harisa gitech migreshes. Gives her a blank piece of paper. He says, this is your get. She's divorced. Hashinan, because we suspect, Shema b'mei milen kasavu. Maybe he wrote it on a paper with the ink called mei milen, which is like fades. So we think that maybe there was something that you hear disappearing ink. The Gemara says, okay, so Shmuel says that she's divorced because of this. We suspect that maybe this was a disappearing ink. Meisvei, I have a question. Hareza giteich. Someone tells his wife, this is your get. Then he grabs the get from her. He throws it into the sea. It's a tough guy. Into the fire. Or anything that makes it get lost. And then he turns and says, let me use your pencil for a second. Chazar v'yomar, he says, Shtar pasimhu. This is a document that was pasim, means that it makes him look rich. It's a type of note that says that people owe him money, but the people only wrote it for him because they wanted him to look rich. He said, for whatever reason, these are like fake papers that show that he has more than he really has. So it's just throwing it out.
Learn earlier that you have to use like special permanent
ink. Yeah. And so what we're saying with this concern, that's a good question. Jonathan is saying, I thought we learned that we have used special ink, permanent ink on parchment. We had before, we wrote that mei milen was going to be kosher, but it depends. It depends. It depends what was going on with the paper. If the paper had also milen on it, milen was the gallnuts, was the water. Now we're dealing with the water of the. If the paper was prepared with the same material that the ink is, then you can't see it, and that was not good. But here, if the paper, you should be able to see it, but for whatever reason you didn't. So because it faded a little bit, so it's hard to see. Okay. So that's why it was supposed to be kosher, because this was done in a way that should have been acceptable. It just faded. So, but the guy takes the document and he throws it out, and he claims that the document that I gave you, I told you was a get, it really wasn't a get. He's really playing with their mind. Shtaramanu, or he says that the reason why I threw it out was a shtaramanu. It was written for me. I was supposed to lend someone money, and this would be a promissory note that wasn't used yet. Yeah, this is a bad idea. The borrower had the promissory note prepared to borrow money, and he gives it to the lender, and he says, you can hold it already from now, you just get me the money later. And yeah, that's not a smart thing to do, because the guy can never lend the money and still claim it back from you. So it was a shtar amana, it was a trusting document where the person would come through with the loan. So we say that migureshes, we say that she's divorced because, okay, one second, because we don't trust him. He's just playing with her. And we can't just put it onto him just to make her forbidden. It means to make her forbidden to everyone else by claiming that it's still his wife. we can't let him play around with this document saying that she's still married. Taima, what's the reason why we trust it, why we say that it's considered a good get and that they're divorced? Was because the ikaksav, because something was written on it. Halek iksav, but if nothing was written on it, lie, then we would say not. You see what happened? What Shmuel said, we looked at the document, there was nothing there. We say that she's divorced. We said, okay, it was fading ink, it was disappearing ink. Now we're saying that it's a good divorce, but there was something written on it. He had to claim that what was written on it was a different document. Now, if disappearing ink would have been a valid document also, then why don't we take the bigger chiddush, the disappearing ink chiddush? Very interesting, right? It must be that the disappearing ink was not valid. It's a kasha on Shmuel. As the kasha on Shmuel is from what the Brisa does not say. The Brisa told me that it's valid when he claims that it's some other document that wasn't really a get, but it didn't say that would be valid if there would have been no ink on it. The Gemara says, "Kikama Shmuel de betkinle b'maya denara." Shmuel says that the document is valid with the disappearing ink because we actually checked it. If you put it in under certain light, it doesn't say light. Over here it says you put it into certain liquid, so you see it will come out. What's exactly that liquid? I don't know. It's some colored water that if you put it in, you'll be able to see the old writing that was on it that faded. Interesting, no? Pullet. If you're able to see, pullet means that it comes out. If it comes out, that's writing good. The light pullet love kluma, and if nothing comes out, then it's considered nothing. Now the question is, if the writing is theirs, then what's Shmuel's chiddush? That's how Gemara gets learned. That first you say, how do you know that's true? Then when you figure out that it's true, then you say, then what's the chiddush? Then why do you have to tell it to me if it's true? Okay. So the Gemara says, "V'chi palit my hava has to the palit." 1 second. Even if it's now coming out and you're able to see it, but you weren't able to see it before.
When I see it, I assume it's legible too.
Right, but when it was given, there was nothing written there. No, it really was written there, but you weren't able to see it before, so it wasn't considered a get. Gemara says, "Shmuel nami cheshin kamer." Shmuel didn't really mean that she's really divorced. Shmuel didn't mean that she can now go ahead and get married. What Shmuel meant was that you have to suspect that maybe it was a good divorce. And what does that mean? Well, if the husband passed away, she wouldn't be able to marry a Kohen because we say that maybe that get was good. Because it's just to be strict. This whole story was just to be strict. Why? But why are we being strict if there was no writing on it? Well, we're thinking that maybe as it was giving it to her, this still wasn't faded entirely. And then she looks at it later, and now we see that it's faded entirely. Then they have to put it into the water, and then they're able to see it. But we suspect that maybe when he gave it to her, it still had some substance to it, still slightly visible.
Or gets now, it's not like something that you pre-thought. It's something that's written beforehand.
No,
just never
it's written on the spot.
on the spot.
Yeah. That's why it takes about an hour. The lady was thrown into the sea?
No, that she was one through the gap.
Oh, I didn't, it could be Vizorak Tai. Vizarka Isa, yeah. You're right, I'm sorry.
No.
You're right. It wasn't the guy that threw it, it was the lady. The lady that threw it into the fire. That makes sense. Very good. Vizorak Tai. Vizorak. It would have been Vizarkai that he threw it. Vizorak Tai means she threw it. Am I correct, Ramesh?
So what?
No, but Zarka.
So it's Zarka.
Right. Yeah, but you say vizarakta. Switches a little bit when you put on the
It's
ending.
vizarakta.
Which means that she threw it, not he threw it.
Right.
Okay. Hillel corrected. It wasn't that the guy was a tough guy and grabbed it back. Vizarakta means she threw it into the
I have a question. No, I don't
Go
have a
ahead.
question this moment because I've been listening. My question is, here we're asking, with the disappearing ink, or, up until now, we don't know this now is kosher, it's not kosher. Originally, we had a machlokas. Does a get become a get by the Edom at the Zman Ksiba or later on by the Edom Shluchim, right? So, and we decided it happens at the end. So what happens in between doesn't really count. It's like ephemeral. It's almost like learning the shir on Zoom. You're giving it here. It's going off into space. It has no physicality. It's like invisible. And all of a sudden, at the receiving end, I see the Punim, I see the Gemara, I hear the whole shir. I'm learning the shir. So we've already answered that. It depends on what's at the end. So if it depends on what's at the end, what do we care? Possibly not seen before, this or that,
Okay. This is like the Telzer Chakira. If you have tea, and you put the sugar in the tea and you stir it so it gets sweet. So what makes the tea sweet? Is it the sugar or is it the stirring? If you're going to tell me that it's the stirring, so why do you need the sugar? If you stir it, well, the sugar just tells you how much to stir. So
I guess you don't like me.
no, but what I'm saying is that you need, of course, an actual written get. But which witnesses are the ones that make the divorce? Are the witnesses that see it being given? Now, if they see nothing being given, but there's witnesses there, then it's not they were saying that, yes, we have witnesses that are watching the delivery of a paper. That paper wasn't a get. That even though the witnesses on the paper aren't the significant ones, but I still need a get, still need a paper with a get on it to be seen. It was saying that maybe there was no get, it was invisible. Yeah, there has to be witnesses that are watching this. And one of the issues here is that where were the witnesses when they're supposed to read the document? Witnesses are supposed to read it. Again, that's coming up next. Yeah, that's a problem. I see Taisvis quotes the Rach that says that the liquid that they put it in to be able to see if the writing was there is they used pomegranate peel water, and that somehow made the ink that you're able to see it.
This is a question of proof, not whether or not she's divorced. I mean, once she receives the get, it can go up in a fire, but she's still divorced, right?
If she receives a real get, she's divorced, even if the get gets destroyed. She doesn't have to hold on to it.
Yeah, didn't you say that once that the Beis Din holds on to the get?
The Beis Din holds the get. And that's a modern thing. Yeah, in the olden days, she held it. Shmuel, okay. Amar Ravina Amali Ameimar. Ravina says, Ameimar told me that Hachi Amar Mereimar Mishmid Ravdimi. Mereimar said in the name of Ravdimi, Hanu Beitrei, these two people, Yov Gita Kamayo, that the get was given in front of them. That's what we call them Ede Masira, the witnesses that watch the delivery of the get.
You don't need the agent inside Israel property.
Whenever the get is being delivered, wherever you need Adam there watching it. Yeah. If it's in Eretz Yisrael, then you need Adam there watching it. You always need Adam watching the delivery of the get. So the rule is tzarech lemikre, they have to read the get before it's given. Yeah, the way it's done is like this. The Sefer writes the get, and then he reads it over to make sure before the witnesses sign, to make sure that it's correct. Once they sign, you can't make any corrections. So he reads it over first, then they sign, and then they read the get. Witnesses read the get after they sign, and then the rabbi says, "Okay, don't take your eyes off the get. Watch the get." And he folds it up and he gives it to the man. The man takes it and he gives it to the woman. Meanwhile, the witnesses have to watch the get the whole time. So it has to be read. They have to know that the get is what was in the get. And when they finish giving the get, then they take it back and they read the get again.
Why are they reading it after they sign?
That's
You
we're
read the
seeing right here.
document before you sign.
You read it before you sign. That's just to make sure it's correct, but it has to be read afterwards as well. Actually, the reading of, I'm sorry, after they sign it, the reading of the get that's done after the signing is because they're reading it as Eidim Masira, as witnesses that are watching the get. That's what's going on. The Eidim Masira have to read the get, so the usually it's the same witnesses. Okay. Meisvei, the Gemara is a question. Hareze Gitech. This is your get. And she took it and she threw it into the sea. I got it right this time. Or into a fire, or anything that would destroy it. And it's not, he can't invalidate it right now. Maybe he gets upset with her that she just threw it out like that. He says, it cost me $600. And you just threw it out like that. So he says, okay, you know what? It wasn't even a get. He's maybe teasing her or something. If you say that the witnesses needed to read it, so how does he tell the witnesses that was some other document? They read it. They know the truth. What happened over here was like this. After the witnesses read it, which is what they're supposed to do, the witnesses that are watching they read the get. So he takes it back from them. He puts it into his jacket. Then he comes out again and he gives her. So they weren't watching the get the whole time. It went out of their sight for a second. He put his hand in there. Now, Mao the Tema, what is it that he could have said? That in his pocket he switched the get with something else. Mashmalan, he's come to say that it comes to teach us that we don't suspect that, and we say that it's the same get. So, even though it left their eyes for a second, we still say that it's that she's considered divorced. Okay. Taisus, it says that they read the get before it was given, they read the get after it's given. If they didn't read it beforehand, but they read it afterwards, that would also be kosher for the Evid. That would still be valid because they know that it was the get. They read it, right? And they read it now, and it says it's. So who Gavra? There was a person, the Zark Legitale the Bisu Lebeni Dani. There was someone that he threw his wife.
Here the husband's present, giving her the gift. Made him a present. I thought if you have Eden right there, when the woman says she's divorced, you don't even need anything.
You don't. Just the only thing is the guy says that the document that I gave you that you just burned wasn't the real document.
He's the husband.
The husband's claiming that the document that I gave you was really a promissory note.
The husband wasn't reneged.
Yeah. So he threw it to her, Beni Dani, that means between the barrels. I guess in a wine cellar or something. He threw it to her. Now it falls in between the barrels. And what happened was, they go to look for it. She must have acquired it because it was next to her,
Doesn't she acquire it if it goes in one window and out the other of her house?
Yeah, like that. So, okay. So meanwhile, she goes to find it. Ishtakach mezuzah. Turns out over there was a mezuzah laying over there. It wasn't a get. There was a mezuzah on the floor. Amar Rav Nachman, mezuzah beini dani leishchicha. That's not common. And it's not like there's a lot of mezuzahs hanging around on the floor between barrels. That's very rare. So it must be that what she found was actually what he claimed was her get, and this must be the get, because if there's something that's found here, it was the thing that was thrown. But I would only say that if there was only one piece of paper that was found there, and it was a mezuzah, I would say that what he threw to her was this. But let's say Abel Beis v'Gimel, but if there were 2, 3 mezuzahs there, then we'd say, then what's going on? This is strange. Midahava have it. When this one is here, Hanami have it. Then this other one was here. So then I would say that the fact that the mezuzah is there is not a strange thing because there's already another mezuzah there. So I would say that the fact that I picked up a mezuzah doesn't mean that this was the get. There's a lot of mezuzahs here. So where's the get? The get, the mice came and ran off with it. Yeah, that was quick, right?
You'd open it up and see it like that. It's obviously not get. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but the question is, what happened to the paper that she was given? Which he told her that it's a get. When she goes to read it, turns out that it's a mezuzah.
Usually don't tell you what things that you see.
Yeah, so it says, here it says shaklu. They don't grab them into their hole and take them over there.
No, they usually
I think
Eat it on the spot.
I think it's a general term
For what?
the general term for rodent.
I wrote it. It doesn't have to be a mouse specifically.
I had a situation, I had a place, and all these crackers there. And then every time he came, the crackers were opened up and half were missing. So I used to think with my grandkids, they always leave crackers and leave them gone. And we eventually figured out what it was. Let's get rid of those squatters.
Remember Mooch the Messy?
Was that not one of your kids?
Mooch the Messy, his father is a mouse, but his father comes to visit and tries to clean up the place. But then when his father leaves, so he takes out the mess again. He's like all happy. Like my old friends. Okay. Hahu Gavra, the Alabe Knishta. There was a person that went into a shul. Shakal Sefer Torah, he takes a Torah. He gives it to his wife. He says, this is your divorce. Now, in the Torah, of course, is written the laws of divorce, but that doesn't mean that that's a get. Amar Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yosef says, what are you worried about? Maybe what you're worried about is that on the back of the Sefer Torah, there's 2 sides to the parchment. Maybe he wrote on the back of the Sefer Torah, he wrote a divorce on the other side of the parchment. And it's written in Meimilan. Maybe you can't see it so well. So maybe you have to search the whole thing. It's hard to find it. Maybe she's really divorced.
I mean, you wouldn't give her a
He gave it to her. This was, of course, his Sefer Torah. It had to be his Sefer Torah. You can't, taking some public Sefer Torah, it's not going to be a get. He has to own it. It has to be that he owns it. Ein Meimilan agabe Meimilan. The only problem is in those days, the Sefer Torah were written on parchment that was treated with Meimilan, with gallnuts. And we learned before that when you write with gallnuts on parchment that's treated with gallnuts, not considered writing.
It's like the time you can't cover yourself with other people.
Right. So, Misham, Krisus Tispa, but maybe we think that she's divorced because it says in the Sefer Torah, the whole section of a get. But he has to write it for her intention, and he didn't do that. Maybe when the Sefer Torah was being written, he tells the Sefer that when you write that section, Parshas, where is it? Over there in Barim. Kiseitze, something like that. That have in mind for my wife. Yeah.
Because if he's going through a divorce,
So he told her to write it, maybe. Habeina and Shina Shma, take out the word Shina. Shmai v'shma v'shem ira v'leka. But it needs to be, it needs to be his name, her name, and the name of the place. You're missing all the details. So, Rabbi Yosef, my Kamash Malan. What was Rabbi Yosef coming to teach me with this? What are you worried about? Of course, it's not a good get. Gemara says, "Shein mei milan al gabi mei milan." It's coming to tell me that you can't write on top of mei milan. You can't write on the treating the Sefer Torah that was treated with this type of gall nut. You can't use an ink from the same gall nuts to write on that. It's because it's not going to be visible.
What was the point of saying that he was entering a shul if it was his Sefer Torah?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe that's just where they kept it. I don't know. Maybe it sounds like it was a story. It was something that actually happened. Yeah. I don't have any other commentary here. That's all I see. Okay. Where are we holding? Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, "Get shekasvu shalei lishma." Let's say the get was written shalei lishma. It wasn't written with the right intention. The heverel of kolmas, but the sefer, he retraces the letters lishma with the right intention. So, banul machlekes Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan. What you're entering now is a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the sages. The Tanya was taught in a brayso Arisha Yitzchak Lichtaves Hashem. There was a person that had to write Hashem's name. In the Skaven Licht of Yehuda, but he was making a mistake. Instead of writing Hashem's name, he was going to write the name Yehuda. But he made a mistake in Yehuda, and he didn't put the dalet, and he ended up writing Hashem's name. So his intention was wrong, and by mistake, he did it right. So, like lucky him, right? So, Ma'aver of Kulmas and Makadshe. Since he has over there, he has exactly Hashem's name because he left out the dalet of Yehuda. What's left is Hashem's name, is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So what he'll do is he could just, according to Rabbi Yehuda, interesting. You want to remember this? Who's the opinion that holds that this is good? His name is Rabbi Yehuda. He says that you can just retrace the letters, and it's acceptable because the name of Hashem has to be written lishma. You have to have the intention when you write Hashem's name. So. No, you don't add the dalet, you add the intention while you're retracing it. Yeah. Visibly, you don't see anything different. It's just, it wasn't written with the intention, with the holiness of Hashem's name. The Chacham say this is not the best way of doing it. It sounds like it's acceptable, but maybe what they really mean is that it's invalid. So
now we're back to the Lishma L'Shem
Yeah.
Mitzvah. Up until now, the Lishmas was always the right name of the
Right.
woman.
Right.
So we're back to the, I mean.
Yeah, but over here also, the Lishma is for the sake of Hashem, for the name of Hashem. So it's both for the name, Lishma, Lishmai,
Her name
and Hashem's name. So we say that if you want to correct this get, you want to retrace it, that is a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda in the Chachamim. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Dilma Laihi. Maybe it's not a machlekes. I understand that there's a machlekes, of course, regarding the Sefer Torah, regarding the name of Hashem or whatever. But maybe when it comes to the get, they don't hold exactly like the same opinions. So why is that? Ad kan lekamri Rabbanan Hasan. Why did the rabbi say over there that it's not good to be in Zekelevan Ve'ovaleka? Because you need to make this is my God and I beautify him, and this is not considered beautiful by a. However, Aval Hacha Loi, but by a get, maybe the rabbis don't say that it has to be beautiful. Yeah, the get doesn't need to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be done in the best way. So we'll say maybe even the rabbis would say that it was kosher, right? We wanted to say that it matches perfectly, right? And it turns out that could be they were more strict by a Sefer Torah than they will be by a get because of the rule of beautifying a Sefer Torah. Rav Chisda says, I could invalidate every get of the world. Okay, don't do that. Amalei Rava, my time. Rava says, what's the reason? Rava is his son-in-law, by the way. Ilema, if you say Mishum Diksiv Kasav, Vahacha Iuka Kasvale, very interesting. Who pays the scribe for the get? It's like the huge argument. I mean, they just fought over everything else. The last piece that they're going to argue about is who's going to pay the scribe. So officially, the husband is supposed to pay. Why? Because he's supposed to write a get for his wife, and he's supposed to write it. It means it's supposed to be his paper, his ink, his writing. He's supposed to write it. If he wants someone else to write it, so he has to pay for that. However, the sages instituted that the woman should pay for the get, even though it's supposed to be his. Why? Because husbands were not giving the get. They didn't want to pay for it. They instituted the woman pays for the get. So today, when they show up, a lot of times they pay half and half or whatever. So whatever the case is, traditionally, well, very originally it was the husband that's supposed to pay. Then they switched it to the woman pays for it. Okay. Well, Rav Chisda says I could invalidate every get because if the woman's paying for it, then it's not his. It needs to be his. It says because of, and he should write. Because of, he should write. Turns out that she's writing it because she's paying for it. Gemara says, but that's not a problem. Maybe they implied the rule of hefker best and hefker. The rabbis have the rights, like eminent domain. The rabbis can take away money from one person and give it to another person. So they said that, yeah, I know she paid for it, but it's his. That shouldn't invalidate it. They can do that. Rather, you know what the issue is? It must be what the Rav Chisda mean that he can validate every get because it says he has to give it to her. And when it says he has to give it, so it has to be something of substance. But because over here it's just a piece of paper which is worthless. So he didn't even give her a Shava Pruta. The Gemara says maybe that's not the pshat. Dilma Nesina Skati. Maybe it doesn't mean that he has to give her something of value. He just has to give her the get. Teda, I'll prove it to you. The Shalcha Misam, because they sent from Eretz Yisrael. No, Misham. This is Rav Chisda. It must be there. They sent from Eretz Yisrael. Kasvali Surya na kasher. That if they sent from Eretz Yisrael, that if they wrote it on things that are prohibited from having any benefit from, which means it really has no value, like it was chametz that Pesach went by, that he wrote the get on you weren't supposed to write a get on fruit peels or things like that, but he wrote a get on a leaf. Well, a leaf of a tree wouldn't be. On the skin of an animal, the sharaniskal or something, something that you cannot have any benefit from. Maybe it belonged to an idol or something on such a paper. So when it's given to her, she really has that paper has no value at all because she can't do anything with it. It has no market price. So nevertheless, it's still a valid get. See? It's not that he needs to give her something of substance and it doesn't have value. So it comes out that we don't really know what Rav Chisda meant that he can invalidate every get. Kufa. The Gemara goes back to discuss what we just mentioned about Isuri Hana. Shalcha Misam, descent from Eretz Yisrael.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Today, does every get follow an identical template?
Every get has 12 lines. It has the main.
But do you know exactly what letter or word begins and ends on each line?
Certain ones. Towards the end, yes.
Uh-huh.
Not at the beginning. The beginning of it, because of the name and the dates, it gets squished around.
I'm thinking of the Lamb Chabad. How
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
That's the one.
So, Shalchem Isam, Kosval Isuri not kosher. They sent from Eretz Yisrael that if the get is written on something that's prohibited to have benefit from, the get is still valid. Is she having benefit from the parchment? No, she's just getting divorced. Amar Ravashi says, Afanan Nami Tanina. You know what? Ravashi says, I even have this in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Ala Ola Shal Zayas. If the get was written on a leaf of an olive leaf. Now the olive leaf is worthless, and nevertheless the get would be kosher. Gemara says, Dilma Shani Ala Shal Zayas Techotzi L'Sterufe. An olive leaf is not as worthless as Yisurei Hana is, because an olive leaf is, yes, one olive leaf is worthless, but that's only because it's just one leaf. Let's say you glued a bunch of them together, you turned it into something. It could combine with other things to have value. It's worthless only because it's 0.01 cent, but it still is not Isuri Hana that it's absolutely worthless. It just we don't know what to do with it, but it doesn't have it. It's not that it doesn't have any use.
But I thought the whole chacham of the olive leaf was that it was permanent.
Why did we choose the olive leaf? We wanted to say that it should be permanent, but the idea is also that now we're saying that it doesn't have any value. You see, and it was still kosher, which means that that you don't need something that has value. Which also tells me that you can use Isuri Hana. It says not necessarily does that say that. See, we have a halacha that you're allowed to use Isuri Hana. Ravashi says I found it in the Mishnah. It says you're allowed to use an olive leaf. We say to Ravashi that what you found in the Mishnah does not prove Isuri Hana. Isuri Hana is worse than the olive leaf. Just because you can use an olive leaf doesn't mean you can use Isuri Hana, things that are prohibited. Okay. Tanya was taught in a brisa. Rebbe says, Kasval Isuri Hana kasher. If it was written on Isuri Hana, things that are prohibited to have benefit from, still valid. Nafak Levi. Levi was a student of Rebbe. Levi Barsisi was his name. He was possibly the father of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and was he the one that became a rab somewhere? They gave him honor, and he wasn't able to answer any of the questions. I think he went back to Levi. He went back to Rebbe. Rebbe sent him somewhere to be the rabbi. I think maybe that's where he went. He went back there afterwards. So anyway, Levi went out and he spoke in public. B'shmei the Rebbe, like Kol they didn't praise that halacha. No, they didn't accept it. B'shmei the Rabbim, but then he said it in that everyone holds this. I guess later on he taught this. It wasn't as an individual opinion. B'kalsi, and everyone was accepting it. Al mehilchas hakavasei, from the fact that he tried so hard to get that halacha accepted. He said in the name of Rebbe, they didn't accept it. He had said it again. And that everyone holds that, so it must mean that that was really the halacha, and so that's why he was working so hard that everyone should accept it. That a get written on Isuri Hana is still a valid get. Tana Rabbanu was taught in a brisa. This gets a little bit confusing. This Gemara, there's parts of it that I feel like I don't understand properly, but let's see. It says v'kasav, the get needs to be written. V'loy chakak, it can't be engraved. It has to be written. L'meimra, what are you trying to say? The chakika lav ksivu, that engraving is not writing. Piraminu, I have a question on that. Eved shetz b'ksav shal gabi tavla pinkas. If a slave goes out, a slave has his document. We learned the halachas of a slave, the document of a slave, and also the document of a get are the same. Well, if he has a document that says that he's free and it was written on top of a tablet, means not a modern tablet. It was a piece of wood. It was on a piece of wood or a pincus or some sort of ledger. Now, how would they write on the wood? They would carve it out. Oh, a wax tablet.
Wax
That was also carved.
Wax on stone.
Well, it was,
Sounds like what they put up with Yehuda came in. Whether it was stone or they carved in the wax, we discussed this.
Yeah.
So that was the machlokes.
that wasn't the wax, it was plaster. So Yatzal Cheres, that's considered good writing. Avalei b'ksav shel gabi kipa va'anduchtri, but it can't be embroidered onto the with the needle, going through on top of some sort of kerchief or some other type of garment. That's not going to work. But we said that engraved or chiseled out is kosher. Amar Ula, Amar Rebbe Lazar, like kasha. Ula says in the name of Rebbe Lazar. Ula was the traveler, quoting halacha from Eretz Yisrael from Rebbe Lazar, that what we're talking about here is hadachak tuchais, hadachak yireichais. There's two types of engraving. You can chisel in where you actually write the letter, or you can chisel all around it, and then it becomes protruding. So the chiseling in is actually writing. That's called chak yireichais. Chak tuchais is you have to chisel in the inside of the letter and also around the letter. Taich means the inside, but it means inside and outside. But as long as it's not the actual letter itself. Chak yireichais means the thigh of the letter itself, you're chiseling. Chak tuchais means you're chiseling in, like inside the mem and around it. So if it's the letter itself, then it's going to be acceptable. But if it's chak tuchais, that's not acceptable. That's not really writing. That's just the image is appearing by itself after you chiseled everything else. The Gemara says v'tuchais lai, and if it's not embossed. What is the word for this? When it protrudes out. Embossed, as opposed to engraved. Embossed is the problem, and engraved is acceptable. If it's embossed, it's not acceptable. For a minute, I have a contradiction. Talking about the plate that was on the kohen, tzitz. So it says it had words Kodesh Lashem written on it. So it says the letters were not sunken in; they were protruding as a gold coin. But din rezav teichesein. But when the gold coins over there, it's embossed. The image on the coins is sticking out, and it said it had to be written on it. So how did they write on it if it's not engraved? And it's embossed. You told me that embossed is not considered writing. Where it says, well, kedin rizav, like kedin rizav. They said like a gold coin. They didn't really mean what you're thinking, that it's the embossed part. Kedin rizav, the boilet. It was protruding. But like kedin rizav, but it wasn't like din rizav dila hasam tochas vachi reichas. But over here, it was engraved. Now, maybe what it means, I don't have any commentary. But I think what I'm understanding from Rashi is that it was engraved, but it was engraved from the other side. So engraved from the other side is also considered writing.
Engraved from the other side is embossed.
Yeah, how was it embossed? Because it was engraved from the other side. It wasn't the process of embossing, which is usually pressing down here or chiseling out here. And it protrudes, but they actually went to the other side of it and they chiseled it out. And they pushed it.
Remind me when we learned way back about the signet rings. Were those embossed or were they engraved?
That was a big discussion about those
I
rings.
don't remember the.
There were two types. You're going back to Shabbos. Which
I'm
ring?
going back, yeah.
Which ring you're allowed to wear in the street? If it had a insignia on it, there were two types of insignias.
Right.
This one and that one.
But was there a conclusion?
I don't remember the ins and outs.
At least I remember this. We discussed it.
They would put it into the wax to make a seal on a letter.
Oh, then there had to be. Result in the wax, like it wasn't false.
That was one way, and another way. Okay. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Okay, you're gonna have to help me with this Gemara. Ravina says to Ravashi, Rushma, which is the minted coin, the image on the coin, michratz charetz, is that carved out? A kinufi machnef. What it means is like this. What's happening with the coin? Do we say is the coin carved out, that you just keep lowering the sides of the coin, or is it being pressed in and causing it to pop out?
I would assume they have a mold and they use melted,
Right.
they pour melted
Yeah.
metal.
Why is this a question? How does it explain it in your thing? Rushma.
Just look at it. It ran out of.
Oh, but can you get the?
I don't get anything, but this is just.
Oh, it doesn't translate it for you when you click on it.
No, I'm actually.
Yeah. Let me see what it says. Okay, Rushma. Ravina says to Rav Ashi, does the press that forms metal coins carve out the background in the metal, in the image of the coin is formed on its own, or does it compress the metal inward toward the empty space in the press, and the letters are formed through this? He said to him, it carves out the background. Okay. Basically, the Gemara has a question. It says that the writing of that front plate was not embedded, rather it protruded. And if you say that it carved out the background, but you have to write it. The Gemara says, no, we didn't mean exactly that it's exactly like the gold coin. Yes, it's protruding. But not like the gold coin. Over there, it was done from the outside. But over here, they did it from the inside. They chiseled, they pushed it out from the inside. That's the fun. By the coin itself, it was actually just cut down, and they let the piece, let what was raised, erased. Oh my gosh, I see that. It's showing me a coin. No, there was a coin they
Just
made.
FYI, you've seen this coin before?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that was made by the mint, and a goop was very careful to have it created in this particular fashion.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can see it here, but it was made this way. It was carved out, so the image was left.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting.
Where is that coin from?
It's an American coin that has a picture of the Rebbe on it.
Oh,
Remember that? Yeah. I bet the Rabbanim were going crazy if that's allowed. But I guess they must have worked it out, to get it that it's acceptable. Okay. So, Boimine Rava Mirav Nachman. Should we leave it over here? Let's leave it over here. Okay. We're on top of Daf Chaf Amud Beis.
Thank you. Have a good day.
They charge us overnight, but I think it was.
Okay.
Okay, have a good day.
Go to.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Great day.
Rabbi Smith, have you heard of a sefer called?
Second.
You mean the Gemara explains it?
Yeah, so I was going to ask Steve, but I kept wanting to say you can impose it from the back and it'll pop out in front. I mean, you can imprint it from the back and then impose it in the front. Just wait 30 seconds. The answer, the Gemara will answer all your questions.
Yeah. That's a
Have you heard
problem.
of a sefer called Kav Naki?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's a very important sefer on Gittin.
Who's the author?
Rabbi Avram David Lavut is the Rebbe's grandfather, great grandfather, the author of the Shara Kailal on the Siddur.
Uh-huh.
He was a Lubavitcher, but it's a very important sefer. In there, it has the spelling of a lot of the names. Because if a name is misspelt in a get, it invalidates it.
Uh-huh. I was listening to a lecture, and the lecturer said that Gedalia Dov Schwartz told him, if you're going to do Gittin, this is the one sefer you need to know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sure, I'm
you.
sure nowadays there's modern svarim that incorporated everything, but that's the fundamental. He's
You
got
said he
it.
was the Rebbe's grandfather?
Yeah, or great grandfather or something.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.